I'd like to go all the way back to 1970 when I was living in Montevideo, Uruguay, and I was serving a mission, and my mission president was Gardner Russell, who had been a very successful businessman, entrepreneur, and a former spy in World War II. He taught us young missionaries who were serving others for 2 years before returning to college and our careers so many great lessons. He called it being on celestial or divine time. Simply put, he taught us to be 5 minutes early for everything that we did. He wanted us to develop the habit of being on divine time or 5 minutes early for meetings or assignments. It was the principle that he suggested that we make a habit in our life. And I am thrilled to have Rob to share something that he shared with me a couple of days ago in relation to this habit as he served as an officer and fighter pilot in the United States Air Force. So why don't you take it from there, Rob? Share your experience. It was so impressive to me.
My son is just starting his university experience, and he's going to be in the Air Force ROTC going through, hopefully, to become a fighter pilot himself. That's what he wants to do. If not, maybe the surgeon route. So we were having some conversations, and he laughed because the morning of their freshman orientation, his alarm didn't go off, and he thought it started at 8:30, but it was like 8 o'clock when he woke up, and he still had to drive down to the university. I mean, clearly going to be late for what he thought was his orientation. Well, fortunate for him, it didn't start until 11 o'clock, but he was in a total panic, showering, jumping in the car and driving away. So we had the conversation about setting 2 alarms. Anytime there's something important in the morning, always set 2 alarms. And then, my father and I were having this conversation later, laughing about it. And I just shared with him, in the fighter pilot world, there's just zero tolerance for being late, for something. I mean, like when I say zero tolerance, if you have a flight brief and you're a wingman for the brief, if you show up 30 seconds late for the brief, the door will close, you're out of the flight. And not only that, you'll probably be grounded for a few days. And so if you have an important flight or appointment and you're late for it, even 30 seconds, you're out. And not only are you out, but if it happens a second time like that, they may give you what's called an Article 15, which is basically a career killer. I mean, at that point, you're not going to get promoted to a higher rank, especially the higher ranks such as lieutenant colonel, colonel, general, and so on. I mean, that's how seriously they take it. And so, I mean, it's just like, it's not a joke. We all make mistakes. There is that one case scenario where they say, okay, I see it could happen once, but that's why if it happens twice, I mean, you're just really, I don't know how to say it other than you're toast. They're going to write an Article 15, but you're in serious trouble. And it's a very high performance culture. And there's just no tolerance for that kind of thing. And so when you have a brief, they call it a brief. When you're briefing for your flight and it starts, say, at 4 o'clock, you're expected to be in that briefing room already sitting down 5 minutes prior to the brief start time. And that is just the expectation. And it's the culture that exists in the fighter pilot world. You're not 5 seconds late. You're not 15 seconds late. The flight lead will start the briefing. They'll say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, here we are. It's 4 o'clock. Hack. Welcome to X and X flight. And away we go. And so, apparently I never shared that with you, but that's the culture that exists in the fighter pilot world.
Oh my goodness. So now understanding that, Rob, how do you prepare yourself mentally you set your gauge so that you're never late, of course. How do you do that?
Yeah, well, unless there's an emergency or something we didn't foresee, it's just simply part of our nature. My wife understands. I'm not sure she's thrilled with it all the time, but we're just never late. And it's just part of something that's been reinforced in my DNA. So it's just like any type of mission planning you do in the fighter pilot world. You say, hey, if we need to be there at 4 o'clock, well, how long is the drive time? Okay, well, let's back it up a little bit further from that. How long does it take to get in the car and get everything ready? Okay, we probably ought to pad that by 5 minutes because we know it's going to take longer to get the kids in. And so we work backwards. And if it's 4 o'clock, the time we're supposed to be there, I mentally say, okay, 3:55, that's our time. And we work back from there. But if it's early morning, there's always 2 alarms. There's my watch, there's my phone. If it's something where it's involving others, I always pad the time a little bit, and so those are the things that I do. And for us, it's worked out well. And Sometimes you have to be patient in the process. When it's other people, it's not just, it's like son or daughter or whatever the case might be, but that's what we do.
Well, I can attest that Rob has kept that habit after all these years. And actually, it's an inspiration and it's a real help to our organization. So thanks for doing that, Rob. And any other tips while you're here before we let you go, our cameo guest today?
No, that's it. I mean, we all know that things will slip up once in a while, and that's okay. That's part of being human. But the idea is that it's very rare and far and in between, and it's the exception and not the norm. And for me, this is just my perspective on it. It's part of being respectful for other people's time. If you have an appointment with someone at 4 o'clock, well, then that's part of being respectful to their time. We don't show up at 4:20, 4:30. To me, that's an indicator of what that looks like. Barring the unforeseen circumstances, the flat tire, the things that can come up naturally in life. But that's something that for me has been an important part of building trust with others, is being respectful of their time. And if we set an appointment, being respectful of that appointed time.